What's his name? Timothy Baldwin, Pastor Chuck Baldwin's son, wrote a paper on News with Views that I'll be responding to. I just have been so busy I haven't had time. He completely misunderstands the Federalist Papers. He just doesn't have a clue as to what they say. And he's a lawyer. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it really is. It is pathetic.
It is pathetic, but at the same time, the Federalist Papers were kind of designed to be difficult, so that they would be difficult to refute. So, I mean, I've read the Federalist Papers, and you know, that's not easy reading, even for somebody who understands the concept and to whom, you know, that 18th century English is not completely foreign. But it's not. The Federalist Papers are not an easy read.
No, they're not. And when I first read them as an undergraduate in philosophy, I outlined them on, legal pads with, I outlined them. And even today, when I read them, I copy them from a website and copy them onto Word and enlarge the type, and I color code them just to make sure that I do not misrepresent what they say.
What's have you heard of Glenn Beck's book, The Original Argument? And have you seen that at all? He does it's a collaboration, but it's redoing the Federalist Papers kind of in contemporary language, so as to educate about the principles of the Federalist Papers, but in a way that a modern reader can understand. Have you seen that book at all?
I have not seen Glenn Beck's book. However, there is a woman, Mary Webster, who has written several editions of the Federalist Papers in modern English. I think she has one in 10th grade English and one in 12th grade English. I have looked at them, and they're very good. So I would recommend Mary Webster's edition of the Federalist Papers. She's on Amazon, and so she's easy to find.
Oh, excellent. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? You can call in.
347-237-5087 if you have a question you want to ask. And Publius, I just want to thank you for all the hard work and effort and the information that you have out there for all of us to be able to refer to and look at and help us with our arguments, because it's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've been doing this for a very long time. My website is publiushuldah.com, and I do have the hyperlinks to the original writings of our framers on nullification in my paper, James Madison Rebukes Nullification Deniers. My website, again, is publiushuldah.com. And also, I'll be posting a video of the speech I gave on nullification last week at the 10th Amendment Center's rally in Raleigh, North Carolina. And also, Mike Meharry, who is the communications director for the 10th Amendment Center, gave a wonderful speech at that rally.
Yes,
where
he did.
Showed, I loved his speech, Barbara. Remember, he showed how people in the northern states nullified the federal fugitive slave laws by obstructing enforcement. Oh, it was wonderful.
Yes, there's a lot.
So I'm going to look for the video of that and post it also.
Oh, that would be great. And
Good.
we have a caller. Let's see if he has a question or not. We have Boyd calling in from Alaska. Hey, Boyd, you're live.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies. How are you tonight?
Hi, Boyd.
Hello, Boyd.
How are you? Hey, I have a question or a comment for a discussion with Publius. Did I say that right?
Publius. Remember when the Federalist Papers were first published in the newspapers? They were published under the pseudonym Publius.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, I've followed you for a long time. I've never learned how to pronounce Publius.
Publius, yes.
Yeah, I got it now. And I'm sorry, I've just got in late. I just got home from work, and I missed the first hour. And you may have already gone over this issue.
Okay.
The controversy between my two favorite constitutional people that I learned from, between you and Levin, on nullification versus Article 5 amendment process. What is your take on the Article 5? I know how we do with nullification, but it seems to me that nullification was pretty much killed, and I've kind of figured this out about 10, 15 years ago, standing in front of the statue of who I thought was my favorite president at the time, which was Abraham Lincoln.
Okay. Why do you say that nullification was killed?
It seems like after the Civil War or during the Civil War, the states' rights issues of the 10th Amendment seem to have taken a very serious critical hit, in that the federal government after the Civil War pretty much took a big control of everything that went on in the states, especially the South.
Yes, precisely. Especially what?
I was going to say especially in the South, after the war,
okay.
But it seems to have since leaked and carried off into the other states.
Okay, first of all, the more the federal government usurps power and exercises unconstitutional the powers not delegated to it by the Constitution, the more imperative it is that the states and the people avail themselves of the remedy of nullification. Otherwise, they would be where we are today, under the absolute and unlimited control of the federal government. Now, about losing the Civil War, say you and I play a game of chess. You lose, I win. Does that mean that your great-great-grandchildren must obey my great-great-grandchildren without question, and that your great-great-grandchildren may not challenge my great-great-grandchildren to another game of chess? See?
Yes, I do understand that, but it would also be a situation of how we had wagered the game. If it was in a perpetuity or not. But they've got.
Our framers recognized nullification as a natural right of self-defense against a tyrannical government. I assume you are not suggesting that we no longer have that natural right of self-defense against the tyrannical government. Because if you were to say that, you would be repudiating our founding principles.
I understand that, And no, I do not say that. But there is seems to be a lack of state resistance to the federal government.
That is true.
And I would say that the state resistance was given a very serious critical injury with the 17th Amendment too.
Okay. First of all, let's one thing at a time. First of all, about the state resistance, God still gave us the right of self-defense. Our founding principle still is that when a government we created seeks to take away our rights, we have the right, we have the duty to alter, abolish, or throw off such government. That is still a right which exists. The problem is that we have become so emasculated in this country, such cowards. We have become so addicted to federal funds that we have failed to assert our natural right of self-defense. We have just submitted like a wife whose husband beats her. We have just submitted to tyranny. And I am trying to re-educate the American people about our founding principles and our natural right of self-defense, and that nullification is a remedy which was explained and embraced by our leading framers, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, and Alexander Hamilton. What we lack is the spine to stand up and assert it. And we better do it fast, or it's going to be too late.
Wow.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Now, my take on Article 5, that is really easy. First of all, the latest paper on my website is about Mark Levin. It's the very last paper. I don't remember the exact title of it, but basically it's Mark Levin refuted, and then I explain. Yeah, have you seen it?
I have gone through parts of it. Yes.
It's a masterpiece. Read the whole thing. Okay, Article 5. What it says is the Congress, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments. So Congress calls it. There is no such thing as a convention of the states. We are being lied to in the most shocking, deceptive manner. Proponents are trying to deceive us into making us believe that the states are the ones who are going to be in charge of this convention. That is a lie, because Article 5 specifically says that Congress shall call the convention. Well, an essential characteristic of calling the convention is Congress gets to appoint the delegates. Now, who is Congress going to appoint? They will appoint delegates who will do their will.
Yeah.
The Congress, which gave us a $17 trillion debt, the Congress who refuses to stand up to Obama, they are the ones who have the power to appoint the delegates to this convention. The danger of an Article 5 convention is this, that once it is called and the delegates are acting under the authority of Congress, being appointed by Congress, they can run away and come up with a new constitution. This new constitution would have its own new method of ratification. There is nothing that requires that the new Constitution provide that it be approved by the states. The method of ratification in the new Constitution can be anything the delegates want. It can be a majority vote in both houses of Congress. And a new Constitution, do you think that we would have rights to keep and bear arms? No.
Oh, heck no.
They would ban Christianity. They would ban guns. All our rights would be privileges which were bestowed and withdrawn by the state, by the federal government.
Now, let me ask this question.
Okay.
Barring the Congress calling for amendments in Article 5,
right?
If 2/3 of the states were to get together on their own, write up amendments on their own for the Constitution and lay them out for the remainder of the states, and then the remainder of the states then, say, ratify them by a 3/4 vote, what grounds, what basis does that take to amending the Constitution?
Okay, two things. One, that is not a method of amendment provided for in Article 5. The two methods of amending the Constitution in Article 5 specifically provide for Congress's involvement in both methods of amending the Constitution. Now, this was an issue at the Federal Convention of 1787. Two of the delegates, George Mason and Mr. Rutherford from Virginia, wanted a method of amending the Constitution where the Congress was not involved. They were voted down by every single state. So, both methods of amending the Constitution set forth in Article 5 have the involvement of Congress. That is what the framers wanted. If you will look in my last paper on Mark Levin, the last one published on my website, I prepared a 4-page chart where I literally went through manually Madison's journal on the Federal Convention of 1787, and I pulled out every single discussion of what became Article 5, and I wrote up a little synopsis of what happened on that date and my little 4-page chart, and I provided hyperlinks to an online edition of the Federal Convention of 1787 so that my readers can satisfy themselves that I, Publius Huldah, am completely honest and truthful in what I tell them it says. So, the second point is this. Our problem is not the Constitution. Our Constitution doesn't need fixing except to repeal about half of the amendments the American people got suckered into approving beforehand.
Right, before anybody...
The problem is that everybody in the federal government ignores it, everybody in the state governments ignore it, and most of the American people don't have a clue as to what the Constitution says about anything. That's the problem. Massive ignorance on the part of the American people.
I agree with you. In your research that you do, you lie heavily on the Federalist Papers.
I sure do.
How about the Anti-Federalist Papers?
Well,
the argument, the opposing argument.
The Federalist Papers were written to answer the objections of the Anti-Federalist. There's nothing sacred or sacrosanct about the Anti-Federalist Papers. These were just people who did not want the federal Constitution. George Mason of Virginia refused to sign it. Rutherford, is it Rutherford?
There were a number of them, but
there were some who opposed the Constitution. I don't cite the Anti-Federalist Papers for the reason that their objections are addressed in the Federalist Papers, and the Constitution was ratified.
Right.
You see, it was ratified.
Yeah.
So that is a rejection of the arguments of the Anti-Federalists. The American people rejected the arguments of the Anti-Federalists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read some of the Anti-Federalist Papers too, and when I've read their arguments, they seem to hold true to what has happened, today. I don't think that the Anti-Federalists were completely, totally opposed to the Constitution, but they wanted some more safeguards. They wanted some language written differently for their arguments that never got in.
Well,
and go ahead.
There's no way that a Constitution can be written to rein in wicked and corrupt judges and legislators and presidents. No Constitution can be written in such a manner that it is self-enforcing. Our framers were very clear. They were depending on the American people to learn the Constitution and to hold the feet of the people in the federal government to the fire when they violated it. In Federalist Paper number 16, next to the last paragraph, Alexander Hamilton says, "The people are the natural guardians of the Constitution." He expected us to know it so that when our legislators, our judges violated it, we could say, "Don't you know that such and such is not an enumerated power? Take a look at Federalist Paper number 46, the last 4 paragraphs, and you would see such and such." That's what our framers expected us to do. But we got dumb and lazy. And so we just let them do what they wanted. And it really started with the progressives in the early 1900s.
Mm-hmm.
It was, Teddy Roosevelt and, what's his name, Woodrow Wilson, very evil men.
Right.
Wow. We got a lot of information tonight.
Can I ask a question about, have you had the opportunity to talk directly with Mark Levin about this? Have you tried? I would love to see a conversation, a radio segment discussing these things. I love listening to Mark Levin, and I have not read the Liberty Amendment, but a lot of what Levin says makes complete sense. And then
actually, it really doesn't. He says a lot of things which are just wrong.
It might make sense in the mind.
What?
It might make sense in somebody's mind putting it together,
yeah.
but the actual facts are not correct.
No. No, a lot of it just isn't. And I have not heard him have intelligent discussions with people who disagree. Isn't it more like a "you bit that dope"?
Something like that.
Actually, I've heard him have some intelligent conversations with somebody he doesn't like, or he disagrees with. But but not so much the average Joe caller,
Well, I've heard several people who have called in disagreeing with different aspects of the Liberty amendments, and he makes a strong case for. I don't get to listen to him, all the time, so I haven't heard all of them, but I definitely have, especially when the book first came out. And like I said, I haven't read it, so I myself can't refute it, or confirm or deny, I guess. But that's why I have heard him respond to individual aspects to callers, who disagreed that we could do it, that we could do amendments in this way, and that is the way out.
Mm-hmm. I have some disagreements with the Liberty Amendment that in a section that I haven't gotten to, but it was discussed on his show in regards to an amendment that is regarding the budget. And I do not know, Publius, you were the one who would know. Anywhere in the Constitution does it mention a budget?
No, it does not. And
I didn't think so, and that's one of the things I have to call into Levin myself and say I have a problem with that because it doesn't mention a budget. I think he should amend his amendment to make it where it's appropriations and not a budget.
Well, listen to this because I'll give you some ammunition. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 says no money shall be drawn from the Treasury, but in consequence, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. Okay, first of all, the balanced budget amendment is the worst idea since sin, and I'll tell you why. I've got 2 papers on it, but in a nutshell, this is the gist of what I say. If you will look at Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 3 through 16, that lists most of the objects on which Congress is permitted to appropriate funds. They can appropriate funds to run a naturalization office, to operate a mint, to have a patent and copyright office. They can constitute federal courts, pay the judges. They can raise and support armies and a navy. In other words, it is the enumerated powers which provide the objects on which Congress is authorized to appropriate funds.